What if I told you that you have been watching this movie completely wrong? Most people see this as a story about one man, a story of hope, a story of escape. And sure, that is not wrong. But if that is all you take from it, you only need 10 minutes, not 142. And the movie would not be called The Shawshank Redemption. Here is the truth. The author and the director both worked very hard to build not one character, but four. These four men are Shawshank, and Shawshank is the real world. So, this film is not just about inspiration. It is asking something much deeper, something that will make you uncomfortable. How should a person actually live? Getting out of prison is not always a good thing. Brooks got out, and he died. Red got out, and he was lost. Only Andy got out and found real freedom. And here is the question you need to ask yourself honestly. Are you really Andy? Today, we are going back to the Shawshank Redemption. Not just to enjoy it, but to truly understand it. And if by the end, you see something new, think something new, feel something new, then this has done its job. Our story begins with Andy. He is sitting alone in a dark car, a bottle of alcohol in his hand, a loaded gun on the seat beside him. His wife has been cheating on him, and tonight, he has decided to end it. But then, something stops him. He still loves her. He cannot do it. So he drives away. He goes home. The next morning, his wife and her lover are both found dead in bed, and every single piece of evidence points directly at Andy. The bullets at the scene match his exactly. Just like that, a brilliant young banker with everything ahead of him is sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in prison. That prison is called Shawshank. On the same day Andy arrives, another prisoner named Red is sitting in front of a parole board. Red has already served 20 years. He speaks carefully. He expresses his regret. He tries his best. Denied. Again. Red steps outside. He looks up at the sky for a moment, then lets it go. Because Red is Shawshank's man on the inside. Need something? Red can get it. He is the guy who knows everything and everyone. That same day, as the new prisoners arrive, the veterans line up to watch. Red and his friends bet on which new guy will break first and cry tonight. Everyone picks the weak-looking ones, but Red, he picks Andy, because Andy looks like an educated man, a man from a better life. And men like that, when they fall into a place like this, they fall the hardest. The camera shows us Andy's eyes as he walks in. It is suffocating. The light dies. The old life ends here. Then the warden steps forward. I am your God now. Your fate is in my hands. Only mine. He has the prisoners stripped, hosed down, coated in disinfectant. A baptism of humiliation, and the prisoners have no choice but to accept this devil as their lord, or face the consequences. Andy's first night begins. The older inmates taunt the newcomers. One large, frightened man cries out first. The guard hears the noise and beats him half to death. Men wearing the badge of civilization, doing the work of animals. And Andy, he makes no sound. All night long, not a single sound. The next morning at breakfast, Andy finds a maggot in his food. The prison librarian, old Brooks, sees it and makes a dry remark. Life goes on in Shawshank. But then Andy hears something that stops him cold. The big man who cried last night is dead. Andy asks quietly what his name was. Nobody answers. Nobody knows. He had no name here. He was already gone. No justice, no law, only control, only survival, only the strong and the smart and the lucky. 1 month passes. Andy adjusts. He goes to Red and asks for something unusual. A small rock hammer for a hobby, collecting and shaping stones. Red, the clever survivor, studies him carefully. Is this man planning to tunnel out? Planning to hurt someone? Andy just smiles. The hammer is tiny. It would take 600 years to dig through these walls. Red agrees. And in that moment, Red actually likes this strange, quiet man. Inside the prison, a violent gang known as the Sisters, led by a man called Boggs Diamond, makes Andy their target from almost the very first week. Whenever they catch him alone, it is brutal. Andy is hurt again and again. Being educated, being different, being better than the place you are trapped in, can be the very thing that makes you a target. Then comes the spring of 1949. Andy's first real turning point. Andy and a group of inmates are assigned to work on the roof of a building. Nearby, a guard named Hadley is furious about an inheritance tax, money he received but might lose. Andy quietly walks over. Everyone freezes. Is this man crazy? Andy speaks calmly. "Do you trust your wife?" He tells Hadley he can protect every cent of that money, legally. All he asks is 3 cold beers each for the men working on the roof. A banker, in prison, just made himself indispensable. The men sit in the sun that afternoon, cold beers in hand, like free men, even if just for 1 hour. And Andy? He does not drink a single drop. He just sits with a quiet, strange smile on his face. Red narrates it later with wonder. "For the first time in a very long time, I felt free." From that day on, Andy and Red are the closest of friends. One evening, the prisoners are watching a film. A beautiful woman appears on screen. The men go wild, whistling, laughing, alive for just a moment. These small sparks of joy, in a dark, cold world, they mean everything. Afterward, Andy asks Red to find him something, a poster, Rita Hayworth, but on the way back alone one night, Andy is ambushed again by the sisters. They drag him into the projection room. He is beaten terribly, hospitalized, but now things are different. Andy is no longer just a prisoner. Boggs Diamond ends up in the infirmary in very bad shape. He is transferred to another prison shortly after. The sisters never come near Andy again. When Andy returns, Red hands him the poster. That night, it goes up on the wall. Not long after, the warden himself comes to search Andy's cell. Really, he is checking on his most useful prisoner. Both men know the Bible, but there the similarity ends. Andy carries his Bible to remind himself to be humble, to stay honest, to stay human. The warden carries his Bible like a weapon. He uses God's words to control others, to frighten, to dominate. While behind closed doors, he does anything he wants. Same book, 2 completely different souls. The warden finds nothing suspicious. He hands the Bible back to Andy with a straight face. Salvation lies within. And Andy replies, perfectly calm, yes, it does. After that, the warden assigns Andy to the library. He handles the finances for guards all across the prison. His reputation grows. Andy goes further. He starts writing letters to the state government, requesting funding to expand the prison library. 1 letter a week, every week. No reply comes. He keeps writing. 6 years pass. Finally, a response arrives. A box of old books, $200, a polite dismissal. Andy announces he will now write 2 letters a week, every week, until they are satisfied. Inside that box of old books, Andy finds something remarkable, a vinyl record, The Marriage of Figaro, an opera. He stares at it, and then something takes over him. He locks the door. He walks to the microphone. He puts the needle on the record, and through every speaker in Shawshank, the most beautiful music the prisoners have ever heard begins to play. Every man stops. Every man looks up. In the yard, in the cells, in the corridors. Red narrates it later with something close to awe. He says he had no idea what those 2 women were singing about that day. He says he did not want to know. Some things are best left without explanation. He says it felt like something so beautiful it made your heart ache because of it. And for just those few minutes, every man in Shawshank felt free. Music goes through walls. It goes through iron. It reaches the part of a person that no prison on earth can ever lock away. Andy is thrown into solitary for 2 weeks as punishment. He comes out smiling. The music was here. He touches his chest. They cannot take that away. After Andy comes out of solitary, he tells Red and the others something. He says that hope is the most important thing a person can hold on to, no matter where they are. But Red pushes back quietly. He warns Andy that hope is a dangerous thing in a place like Shawshank, that it can drive a man insane. Red says this from 30 years of personal experience. 2 people not agreeing, 2 people seeing the world through different eyes. And the film shows us immediately who is right, and who is also right. Because right after this conversation, the camera cuts to old Brooks. Brooks Hatlin, the librarian who has worked in that prison library for decades, is granted parole, and the news destroys him. Brooks does not want to leave. Shawshank is the only world he knows anymore. He has friends here, purpose here, a place in the order of things. Out there, he is nobody. So Brooks does the only thing he can think of to stay inside. He holds a knife to another prisoner's throat. Red understands immediately. Brooks is not crazy. Brooks is institutionalized. He has been inside so long that the walls have become his home and freedom has become his enemy. The parole is not reversed. Brooks is released, and the film follows him out. He takes a small room in a halfway house. He bags groceries at a store. He watches the world with the eyes of a man who has come back from a completely different century. He writes letters to the guys in Shawshank. He says the world got itself in a big hurry. He does not like it. He cannot sleep. He cannot settle. He wants to do something wrong just to get sent back, but he is too old and too tired even for that. One evening, he carves his name into the beam above his bed. Brooks was here, and then he is gone. Outside, the world keeps moving at its own relentless pace, completely unbothered. And inside Shawshank, the men hear the news and go very quiet. Back inside Shawshank, the state finally agrees. $500 a year. Andy builds the best prison library in the state. Prisoners can read, learn, breathe. Around the same time, the warden launches a new program. Free prison labor for outside construction companies. The warden pockets the profits. And Andy is given a new assignment, laundering all of it, turning dirty money clean. Red worries. What happens if this falls apart? Andy smiles. He explains that he created a ghost, a fictional man with a full legal identity who does not actually exist. If anything goes wrong, the ghost takes the fall, not Andy. Red shakes his head in amazement. Then a new prisoner arrives, a young man named Tommy Williams. Energetic, funny, likable. He has been in nearly every prison in the state for a long string of small mistakes. One day he comes to Andy with something unexpected. He wants to get his high school diploma. He has a wife and a little girl now. He wants to be someone they can be proud of. Andy agrees immediately. And so, in the middle of Shawshank, he starts teaching Tommy from scratch. Letters, words, sentences, mathematics. Everything from the beginning. Months pass. Tommy sits for the exam. He finishes it, then walks outside and completely falls apart. He is convinced he failed. But while talking with Red about Andy, Tommy suddenly goes very quiet. He remembers something from a previous prison, a dangerous, boastful cellmate who loved to brag about his crimes, including one specific crime, a banker's wife and her lover, killed in her bed, and the husband got blamed for it. Andy hears this. Even though he always knew he was innocent, hearing it confirmed out loud after 19 years inside, it breaks something open in him. He goes straight to the warden. He tells him everything. He asks for the case to be reopened. The warden listens, and then does absolutely nothing. Andy is thrown into solitary. A few days later, Tommy's exam results arrive. He passed. He has his diploma. Andy hears this through the walls and smiles despite everything. That night, the warden calls Tommy out to a restricted area of the prison in complete darkness. And there, on the warden's order, a guard shoots Tommy dead. The official report says one thing: attempted escape. Nobody investigates. A young man who just earned his diploma and was building towards something better is gone because he knew too much. The warden visits Andy in his solitary cell the next day. Andy, bruised and broken in the corner, tells him quietly, "I will not help you anymore." The warden's mask comes off completely. No more Bible verses, no more polite distance. He reminds Andy very directly that he owns him, that everything Andy has built inside Shawshank can be taken away in an afternoon. And then the warden leaves. Andy sits alone in that dark cell, and somewhere in that silence, a decision is made. When Andy comes out of solitary, he calls Red over. He talks about a place called Zihuatanejo, a small town on the coast of Mexico. Warm sun, the Pacific Ocean, impossibly blue and wide. A simple boat, a simple life with no memory attached to it. Red listens. His heart is heavy. Then Andy says one last thing before they part. There is a specific field in a place called Buxton. A stone wall runs along the north edge below a large oak tree. If Red ever gets out of Shawshank, go find what is buried there. Red nods, but he is scared, because earlier that day Andy asked someone for a length of rope. I was afraid for him that night, more afraid than I had ever been. The next morning, roll call, one cell empty, Andy Dufresne, gone. The warden explodes. He drags Red out, but the cell holds nothing but a pile of carved rocks. And on the wall, still the poster, Raquel Welch. The warden tears it down, and behind it, a tunnel, cut by hand, inch by inch, over 19 years. With a tiny rock hammer that Red once said would take 600 years to make any impression. That night, Andy had made his move. He switched the warden's real financial records with a fake set he had spent years quietly preparing. He took the real records with him. He put on the warden's own suit and shoes. He crawled into that tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, a sewage pipe, 500 yards long. He broke through it with his rock hammer, using the crashes of thunder to cover every sound. And then he crawled through everything dark and foul and rotten that Shawshank had ever produced. 500 yards of it, in complete darkness. And on the other side, in the pouring rain, Andy Dufresne stood up, threw his arms wide open to the sky, and was free. The next morning, Andy did not run and hide. He dressed in the warden's best suit. He walked calmly into banks across the region. He withdrew every cent that had been laundered into the ghost account. All of it. Then he mailed the real financial records, every piece of evidence of every bribe and every stolen dollar, directly to the offices of the local newspaper. By the time the police arrived at Shawshank to investigate, the story was already running in print. The warden is exposed completely. Everything unravels in a single morning. Officers arrive at his office. The warden sits at his desk. He opens his Bible and finds a note from Andy inside. It says, "You were right. Salvation lies within." And in that moment, the warden understands something far too late to be useful. He carried that Bible his entire career as a costume, as a symbol of authority, as a way to appear righteous while doing the exact opposite. He used God's words to frighten and control others, while he himself lived by no moral code at all. He had an innocent young man shot dead in a prison yard to protect his money. He used God's name while doing the devil's work. And now there are no walls, no guards, no prisoners to punish, no power, just himself and everything he has done. The warden makes one final decision. He shoots himself in his own office rather than face the consequences. No one else could judge him. In his world, in the world he built, no one else was ever qualified. Back in Shawshank, Andy's name becomes legend. The men who knew him speak about him with a reverence that sounds like something they are almost afraid to say out loud. Red says it simply and perfectly. He says he has to remind himself that some birds are not meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright. And when they fly away, the part of you that knew it was a sin to lock them up in the first place does rejoice. But still, the place you live in is that much more gray and empty that they are gone. Red's next parole hearing arrives. He has now served 40 years in Shawshank. He walks in and does something completely different this time. He stops performing. He tells the truth. He says he was young and stupid, that he hurt a person and regrets it every single day. But he also says, very directly, that he does not care anymore whether they let him out or not. He is just being honest. The young officer across the table looks at him for a moment, and then stamps his file. Approved. Red walks out of Shawshank for the first time in 40 years. And almost immediately, he understands everything that Brooks tried to tell them from that halfway house room. Same bed, same walls, same small grocery job. He stands at the bagging counter and watches the world move at a speed that makes him dizzy. He cannot sleep. He stands at his window at night and feels completely invisible. He thinks about Brooks. He understands completely why Brooks did what he did. He is right on the edge of the same road, and then something shifts. Maybe it is Andy's voice in his head. Maybe it is the promise he made. He crosses the border. He travels to Buxton. He finds the field. He finds the oak tree. He digs at the base of the wall, and there is a tin box. Inside the box is money, and a letter from Andy. Hope is a good thing, Red, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I will be hoping that this letter finds you well. Your friend, Andy. Red folds the letter. He puts it in his pocket, and he goes south. He writes as he travels. He says he finds himself so excited he can barely sit still. He says he thinks it is the feeling only a free man can feel at the start of a long journey, whose ending he cannot see and does not need to know. He just hopes he can make it. He hopes to see his friend and shake his hand. He hopes the Pacific is as blue as it has been in his dreams. And then the camera finds Zihuatanejo, the warm light, the open water, the deep, impossible blue of the Pacific. And there on the beach is Andy, working on a small boat with the ease of a man who is exactly where he belongs. Red walks toward him across the sand. That is the end. This film gives us so much to think about. The warden could quote the Bible perfectly, but he never once followed it. He was cruel, greedy, corrupt. He murdered an innocent young man to protect his money. Andy carved a hole through his Bible to hide a rock hammer. That looks like disrespect. But Andy was the real believer. He used his faith to stay honest, to stay human, to hold on to what was good inside him. Inside Shawshank, from the guards to the prisoners, everyone was institutionalized. Everyone was a prisoner in some way. Everyone except Andy. But here is the question this film is really asking you. In real life, is everyone Andy? Are you Andy? We all tell ourselves we are the one who would escape, the one who would resist, the one who would never let the walls get inside us. But are we? Brooks got out. He was lost. He could not survive freedom. Red got out. For a while, he nearly followed the exact same road. The prison walls were not just made of stone. They were made of time, of habit, of fear, of forgetting who you are. We all want to break free of whatever is holding us back. We all want to climb to the top as fast as we can. But have we ever stopped to ask whether the life at the top is actually the life we want? Have we looked honestly at ourselves, the way Red finally did in that hearing room? We cannot change Shawshank. We cannot change the world. The only thing we can truly change is ourselves. Andy's freedom did not begin the night he crawled through that pipe. It began the day he decided, inside those walls, in that darkness, that he would not let Shawshank get inside him. He carved stones. He wrote letters. He taught a young man his ABCs. He played music through every speaker in the prison. He built a library. He lived fully, inside the worst place imaginable, with everything he had. That is the real question this film is asking. Not just how do we escape, but how do we live?